Good morning, welcome to our next video. This is on a subject called cascade, and you'll see in the branding that there's a Z right in the middle of that word cascade, and we'll come up with reasons for that in a minute. Anyway, cascade, this is about key milestones or strategic priorities and how you take the key milestones and strategic priorities and cascade those into the meaningful and measurable objectives at all levels in the organisation, and a way to monitor and evaluate as part of the business review and strategy review. So it's quite a big introduction there, but key milestones, how do we take those key milestones, those strategic priorities, and get them through the organisation so they're meaningful and they're measurable and they touch the people that we need it to touch. So how do we get that through the organisation? So that's what we're talking about today. As a means to engage with the audience here and get you thinking about this differently, this is really down to leaders. Okay, so leaders, from Tony Robbins, his massive experience talking to business owners, leaders spend 5% of their time on the problem and 95% of their time on the solution. So there's a little thing around that. So as leaders, we should be spending 95% of our time on the solution. And sometimes in reality we'll spend a lot more time on the problem because it's exciting trying to solve problems and complain about them.
The firefighting.
And the firefighting, that hero type mentality. I've put the fire out, that's great. 5% of our time we spend on the problem, 95% of the time on the solution. Why would Tony Robbins say that? And why would we want to say that in our video today to get us focused around strategic priorities? The simple word is focus. Yeah. Whatever we focus on, we've got to give it meaning, and that meaning there will determine the actions and the behaviours that we'll take from there. Whether that's in your personal life, your relationships, or in business, what we focus on, we have to give it meaning. The meaning doesn't come from anywhere else apart from us. So what we focus on, we've got to give it meaning, and we'll act upon that. So if we're focusing on what we don't want, like the problem, then we'll tend to see more of the problems. If we focus on things that we don't want in life, then we'll tend to see more of the things that we don't want in life. So it's very an affirmative and positive statement. So leaders spend 5% of their time on the problem, recognize it, okay, now I'm going to spend my time, my valuable time, focusing on the solution, how to move forward from there. Again, another quote I'm going to bring in from Tony Robbins. If you talk about it, it's a dream. And you've heard variants on this, but if you talk about it, it's a dream. If you envision it, it's possible. But if you schedule it, it's real. So we're really now getting into, from all of our videos, a lot of about the who and the people and the organisation. So the bus and the culture and the atmosphere on the bus. Where's that bus going? We're really getting into the nitty gritty now, just the how. How do we make things happen in the organisation? So if we schedule something, it becomes real. And I think most of us can at times fail to schedule. We'll get excited about some new idea or dream we have, and we can see where it can go.
Have them every day.
But really, to bring it into reality, there's got to be some tangible actions and priorities and tasks to get it to a point whereby we can schedule that and make it real. So at this point, we'll give you a couple of statistics just to think about why it's important to schedule and plan.
Yeah, the statistics I'm just going to mention come from a couple of big bits of research, both globally and UK. The first one is by Professor Nicola Bateman from Cardiff University. So it was a joint bit of research done with PricewaterhouseCoopers, and it was looking at the failure rate for change or improvement initiatives. So yeah, you said you've got the ideas, but then over time, do they just fail to actually produce any real business benefits? And basically it was included 200 leading companies across the world and more than 10,000 change projects or change initiatives, improvement initiatives. The simple stats from this bit of research at a high level, it was over 70% showed considerable evidence of high failure rate. So that's 70%. And there was only 2.5% actually showed any real business benefits. So it was essentially saying, yeah, all of them are good ideas, most of them just led to nothing.
Yeah. So I think at this point, that resonates with me, and hopefully it's going to resonate with the audience as well. We have all done this, okay? Great ideas are just that, okay? To really implement great ideas, we need teams to help us to know how to do that. So we need a method to give them the objectives which are measurable and can deliver the results we're looking for.
Yeah, it's like at a personal level, the New Year's resolution type thing.
Yeah.
You January the 1st, you've got all these great intentions of what you're going to do for that year, and by the middle of January or the end of January, you've just failed because you haven't had a real plan.
Yeah.
You haven't really planned and scheduled how you're actually going to have the discipline to make that change stick. So another this is astounding stats really when I first seen this. It was from a guy who worked for Nissan, a lovely fella, Keith Copeland, MBE, done a load, particularly in the northeast of England through development training and working with Nissan suppliers. And that was what the research was based on. It was part of Keith Copeland's PhD. It was a 5-year study, so it was really comprehensive. And it involved 163 Nissan suppliers across the UK. Obviously Nissan, huge car manufacturer. It's a really important industry and important for the UK.
I think probably something to add in there as well. We're talking about a specific car manufacturer. Probably applies to a lot of car manufacturers.
Absolutely.
But we know this one. And just to put it in context as well, the site we're talking about is 6.2 billion sterling pounds turnover site. Okay, per annum, 6.2 billion. So it's a big business, and this is the study from that business.
8,000, approximately 8,000 people work on that site. So they're a huge site within a huge car manufacturer. But you're right, a lot of car manufacturers will be very similar. So as I mentioned, Keith and I've had the pleasure of actually working with Keith on a project a little while back. So I had first-hand exposure to the information from the study and actually seeing it in practice as well. But basically, the stats from Keith's study, as I said, it was based on 163 Nissan suppliers in the UK. So companies with some form of what we call policy deployment, and I'll come on to that later. So some form of strategic deployment. Companies who had that, only 4% of failures occurred in the first 12 months, and only 16% of failures occurred within 24 months. So pretty good figures, pretty good stats there.
On sustainability.
On sustainability.
Yeah. Making these ideas stick.
Making these ideas stick, absolutely. So there was a schedule, there was a plan, there was some responsibility there, and there was really good success rate. However, on the other side of that, companies without any sort of schedule, without any sort of strategic deployment, 74% of the failures occurred within 12 months. And this one just really got me. 100% of failures after 2 years. So 24 months, we went through all this pain and effort of putting these improvements in place. None of them had really sustained any real business benefits without some form of strategic deployment.
You'll have heard yourselves in organisations, and it might be in your organisation as well, where the workforce will be thinking, oh, here's another change that's coming, okay? And some of the negativity around change, because they know it's not going to stick. And those types of statistics, they're worrying, okay? So, but being positive about that, if there's a plan, if there's a schedule, it makes it real. So this is the bit we're talking about now. It's making this thing real. We're all good at ideas and envisioning a new bright future. How do we make that stick? How do we make it sustain? How do we maintain it? So yeah, great bunch of stats there, Trevor. So we talked about in our previous video, business roadmap rather than a business plan, a business or roadmap. this is essentially looking at your current states, where's my future states, and how can I get there. So this is the bit where you're closing the gap, you're putting in some milestones from where you are now to where you want to be. The milestones, those milestones are the strategic priorities. And in any of these policy deployments, strategic deployments, as we call it, cascade, you'll have between 3 and 6 of those. I think for a small organisation, 3 is probably comfortable. For a large, huge organisations, likes of a Nissan, which you've mentioned there, probably 6 strategic priorities. And straight away, what does that tell you? This is focus. Yeah. Can you imagine having 100 strategic priorities? Nobody would know what they're doing, even at a large organisational level. Small organisation, keep it at 3, and you've got a fighting chance then to communicate and show the focus that you've got in your business. So yeah, the business roadmap is taken from the current state to the future state of the business, and there's a gap there. That gap is closed by putting in the strategic priorities or the milestones on that journey, and also to build in or overcome the roadblocks and the problems that you may encounter. Again, let's go back to leaders. Will spend 5% of their time on the problem and 95% of their time on the solution. Focus on what you want, not what you don't want. Focus on overcoming those roadblocks and those problems. They get built into the strategic priorities. Yeah. So at this stage then, it's about, well, okay, that's good advice. What you're trying to do now is align the organisation to your business roadmap, to your strategic priorities and your milestones. We've got to make those strategic priorities meaningful and measurable. Let me do that by cascading into the rest of the organisation meaningful and measurable objectives.
Yes.
Yeah. So we're taking these higher level strategic priorities, and let's say in your organisation is going to be 3, and those 3 are then cascaded, and we use the visualisation of a Z model, because policy deployment can be called that as well, how it's cascaded into the different levels of your organisation. Yeah, so I think at this time it's really important to talk about our take on policy deployments.
Yeah, well, what we've done, what Lindsay mentioned there, the cascade, we've really just taken a model from the Japanese philosophy, from lean manufacturing, and tailored it really to suit any organisation.
Any organisation, absolutely.
No matter whether you've got 5 people in a little professional services outfit or whether you're a large manufacturing site. We've tailored it so it can be relevant and useful for any size and any industry. So as I say, it's something from the Japanese philosophy of lean manufacturing, something called Hoshin Kanri. Now, Hoshin Kanri is just Japanese words, and essentially the Hoshin just means compass or direction, and the Kanri means the management or administration. So really it's just how you manage where you want to go.
Yeah.
And it's just that structure and that process to do that. So essentially it's our cascade model that we've developed. It's to involve it's about leadership, it's ownership, but it's also involvement. So how do you cascade that through the organisation? So you take your strategic objectives or your priorities, and that comes from the leadership, obviously. But then how do you work with that middle group, your line managers, your mid managers, to get the ownership and key responsibilities? But then also levels further down, it's how you get the involvement. So it involves everyone, but it should all sort of cascade back up to the top priorities and objectives. So yeah, so it's a 5-step structured approach, and really it's just to help standardise and control the way you set, cascade and monitor those business priorities on an annual basis. So we're normally looking at sort of 12 to 18 months. We use 12 months because it's just a nice calendar year. It's a good bucket to think what we're going to do, what's the priorities for the coming year. Okay, it incorporates something called a Z model approach. I'll explain that in a little while. And we'll also, just while I remember, we'll share, we've got a little e-book that we can share, which goes into a bit more detail around each step. So we'll just cover the 5 steps at a high level during this video, and as I say, you can download that little ebook. So yeah, so the 5 steps. Essentially, the first step is about setting and agreeing the annual priorities. So yeah, that's done with the leadership team, and that should be aligned to the overall vision or purpose of the organisation. So over 3 to 5 years, what's that top level vision? You might have seen some of our stuff on the 3 V's where we look at vision, value, visual representation. Is that the vision over the next 3 to 5 years? These priorities should fit to that high level vision. So yes, you need to set and agree the annual priorities as a leadership team. The second step is to develop the key actions, targets, timings and control items for all of those objectives. And then essentially look and decide the cross-functional teams and individual responsibilities. The third step is about checking the objectives to make sure that they do actually link back up to those priorities, to make sure you haven't lost your way a bit, but also to check that certain people haven't got too much responsibility, because if one person could be the bottleneck and it's going to fail. So it's making sure that those responsibilities and key actions are spread across the relevant people. And also at that point, the third step under check, it's about, once you've done that, you've got those objectives and key responsibilities, it's how you communicate. How do you have that cascade communication to the whole team, the whole workforce? It needs to be very transparent of what the priorities are. So when you ask someone at any level of the organisation, they need to be doing something because it's important. It's important because it filters back up to the business priorities.
I think it's important to say as well that we know change initiatives, and we've done a section on this as well in one of our videos. Change and the change curve. Whenever something new is taking place in your organisation, there's a set of emotions people will go through naturally. Okay. This also helps just to transition people through the change curve, because they see what the change is and what it means to them very specifically. Oh yes, if I do 1, 2, 3, that helps me with the organisation to achieve their strategic priorities. So to see where they fit, it gives better alignment, better communication, and hopefully not too much of the change curve taking place.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So yes, we've covered the first 3 points here. The fourth step is about how you monitor through relevant KPIs, the regular meetings, the structure, and it's not obviously just to review it, you need to actually do something about it. So it's not just the monitoring, it's putting in key actions. So this fourth step is about monitoring and putting actions in place, because you might fall behind on certain things, so you don't want to get to the end of the year and think, oh, we failed on that, or get to October and you haven't got enough time. So it's about monthly, so regular monitoring through KPI.
And again, that's why we like to use business roadmap and milestones and the business sat nav, because this is live, a business plan can be sort of fixed in stone. It's used for external reference. Business plan and all the things we're talking about, it should be very fluid, should be dynamic. You're living every moment, and as you come across new territory, new terrain, and you need to shift direction a little bit, then that's what happens. And this is the monitoring piece. Live feedback from your business sat nav. Okay, we need to change course a little bit to keep us on track for the year end.
Absolutely. It's a good point. In that fourth step, it is about being really flexible and adapting to whatever's happening, because just the best plans in the world sometimes just need to be tweaked and changed. And the final step, so the fifth step, is about the review. It's the self-assessment and feedback. So what's happened throughout the 12 months? How can you improve when you come to set your new business priorities? So it's always learning from the process to put something better in place. And it's using that plan, do, check, act type philosophy as part of that review. So just very quickly, the 5 steps are set and agree the priorities, develop key actions and targets. Third step is to check the objectives to make sure they're evenly balanced and communicated. The fourth step is about monitoring and using your KPIs at regular review points. And the fifth step is the self-assessment, that review process.
Okay, so a good overview there of what we're talking about, and we're talking about strategic priorities, and how we cascade those into an organisation. Of course, there's more detail. Trevor mentioned there's an e-book to give you a bit more information, and obviously lots of detail beyond that as well. Okay, so just to take us through the next sections, we've talked about that now, how we align the organisation with those strategic priorities. So for you then, some takeaways, the top 3 things to think about. We've always got this gap in our organisation, our business, where we want to be and where we're at, so close the gap. And the recommendation is have 3 to 6 key milestones or strategic priorities. We know big organisations, huge organisations have 6, okay, for a global enterprise. If you're a smaller organisation, we're really talking about 3, but maximum 6 anyway, okay? It's all about a focus. Yeah? Got to be focused. If you're focused, the rest of the organisation's got a chance now. We have to honour the problems. We call the problems roadblocks. Reminder that leaders spend 5% of their time on the problems and the roadblocks, but spend 95% of their time on the solutions. So what we're going to do, we're going to honour the roadblocks and the problems, and we're going to plan for the solutions in the strategic priorities, in the cascade, and how we align the organisation as well. So there's the 3 takeaways for you for today. So thank you for your attention. Any final points?
Just to mention, I did mention the Z model earlier. I'll just quickly cover that. Just to really, when we refer to the Z, it's part of the cascade process. So how it cascades through each level of the key responsibilities, and we can put an infographic up there explaining a bit more detail. But also you'll get some information in the e-book if you want to look at that as well for that.
So yeah, so just to reiterate, just to close off for today. So close the gap. Have 3 to 6 key milestones. They're your strategic priorities. And honour the problems and the roadblocks, but plan for solutions. Spend more time planning for solutions. Build into your cascades and how you align your organisation. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.